guitar, John Temple. Accordion and keyboards, Alan Dunn. Violin and mandolin and penny whistle, Vince Lupton. Any Irish in the audience here? She's saying that, do you remember Thin Lizzy? Do you remember that band?
Yeah!
Philip was a really good friend of ours, and in fact he got the Rats in to the record company for their first contract, but he used to, I don't know if you ever saw Lizzy, fucking great, but he used to have this bass guitar with a mirror on it. And he'd be checking out all the babes I could use. Giving me plenty, you know. And once he wants, you just get the spot. And he used to stand there and he'd say, "Is there anybody out there with a bit of Irish in them?" Yeah, and he goes, "Anybody out there like a little bit more?" This next song is a sort of Irish song, but I better tell you, I know where you're from here. Turple's from Newcastle in England. Have you ever been there from Newcastle? Al's from Sheffield, which is actually twinned with Oshawa. Sheffield's a bit of a shithole, but and I don't want you to make the conclusion that you think I'm making, because it would be the last thing on my fucking mind you ever Al gets pissed off when I say it's a shithole because he says the area around it's nice. The area around everywhere is nice. Vince is from Zimbabwe. Anyone here from Zimbabwe? Anyone like a little bit more? Bit of African in everybody. The rest of us are Paddies from Geldof, County Cavan, Pete Kent. From County Kilkenny, Niall Power on percussion synthesis. County Cork, Tim Russell on drums. And I'm from Dunleary in Dublin, which is actually twinned with Sheffield and Oshawa. The reason I'm telling you that is because back in the day, in the late 70s and maybe early 80s, Pete and I wrote this song for the Rats, and it's it's worthwhile to explain it. And I know that some people came up from Hamilton from the gig there, and they're here again. Hamilton's interesting. It's as I said last night, it's the only town I know that's actually named after a racing car driver. Nobody got that fucking from Lewis, there you go. Like, see, there's a sad, tragic racing car fan of, I just heard of him because he was British, otherwise I'm like, he drives a car, he gets $100 million for 3 years. I mean, what the fuck? But to put that in perspective, One Direction will make $150 million this year. It's more dangerous being in One Direction than driving one of those motor cars. You'll get shot for bad music. This song we wrote at the end of the 70s, 80s, and neither Pete nor I thought it was going to be a single, but it was, and it was a big hit. Obviously not in Canada. But it was in Germany, it was #1. Although they say that's because the Germans thought it was about them. That's because the Germans think everything's about them. Hey, anybody with a bit of German in it? Just raise your hand. Be careful. Never be careful. Never. The Brits thought it was a nice, good pop song. And they were dancing around, this is great. And the Irish knew it was about them, and it was. And the net result of this song was that, the Rats got banned from playing in their own country, and for about 5 minutes we were the Sex Pistols of Ireland. It was because we'd grown up in this country that really offered any of their young people nothing at all. I mean, it was, unfortunately, like today, a country in permanent recession. There seemed to be no way out of it. And some of your parents, some of you probably left in that period and got out, and that was one of the economic policies, probably the main economic policies, leave. And it was made worse by the fact that those of you who remember it, we were engaged in what was in fact a civil war, and it was referred to in the papers as the Troubles. There was always inverted commas around it, quotes around it, like it was some postmodern concept that killing thousands of people could just be reduced to the Troubles. But when you have thousands of people killing each other, it's a civil war. And the government in the south where we were from were funding this war. The Prime Minister personally was. And he was getting money by zoning areas around Dublin, giving them to his son, who in turn sold them to developers. And that money went to pay for their rich lifestyle and buying guns from one of the factions in the north, killers and murderers all. The church knew about this. They shut up, said nothing, because I presume they were busy abusing the children of their parishioners. And everyone kept quiet about that too. And the businessmen kept quiet, why not? They were coining it from all sides. And it was sort of weird because we kind of knew this. And it was almost normal, this culture of silence. We became complicit by our silence, a sort of conspiracy of claustrophobia, culture of claustrophobia. And the rats got lucky and we got out. But I don't know what's... Pete had the tune and the riff, and I just stuck in the words of it, and I don't know why it suddenly cropped up, but it reminded me, all these things going on, and somebody had to say something, and called it Banana Republic because it reminded me of like the Central American country towed into the North Atlantic. That's what we were behaving like. And years later, as we grew up, and our generation came into authority and power, they held all these tribunals about that period, and they found out that what the rats were talking about in this song was true. And the church obviously has collapsed in Ireland, thank God. Thank God. And unfortunately, the Prime Minister outlived the tribunals, or died before they could conclude what he'd been up to as a creep. And but I used to say one of the advantages of getting old, one of the few advantages, sometimes you prove correct. Unfortunately, for those of us from Ireland, we've come back now. We've come back to another scandal where the banks and the developers and the politicians were in cahoots once again to bankrupt the country. Once again, thousands and thousands and thousands of kids are leaving to Canada and Australia mainly, so it's to your advantage. These cool people, educated, end up here. It's sad because you know, the country hemorrhages its intellectual capital, it hemorrhages its future really. And as I said last night, every generation fails, and boy, have we failed. But at least we flagged what was happening back in 1980. This is Banana Republic. Banana